If you have ever placed your trust in someone who spoke of light but brought you only darkness, you know a particular kind of wound to the soul. You begin to doubt not only others, but your own ability to see clearly. This is not the clean break of an honest mistake. It is a fracture of the spirit, a deep and quiet ache that comes from being betrayed not by a declared enemy, but by someone who wore the costume of a friend, a guide, a person of God. In that moment, the world seems to warp. The ground beneath you softens, and you are left questioning the very compass of your own heart. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss the signs? This self-recrimination is often more painful than the betrayal itself, for it suggests that the failure was not in them, but in you, in your own perception, your own judgment. And so we build walls. We become cautious, suspicious, even cynical. We learn to see predators everywhere, and in our effort to protect ourselves from the false saint, we may close our hearts to the true one. But what if this wound, this painful education in deceit, was not meant to be a scar that hardens us, but an initiation into a deeper form of sight? There is an ancient story for this exact pain, a medicine for the heart that has been deceived. It is a promise that you can learn to see the truth, not with your eyes, which can be so easily fooled by appearances, but with a deeper kind of knowing. This is an invitation to reclaim your trust, not in the shifting personas of the world, but in the unwavering clarity of your own soul. It is a journey back to that inner sanctum where the truth has a certain resonance, a particular hum that no lie can ever perfectly imitate. Let us travel back in time to a place of legend and wisdom, the court of King Solomon. This was a king whose wisdom was said to bridge the worlds of man and animal, who could understand the language of the wind and the secrets whispered by the birds. Into this court of profound justice and clarity, a small bird was carried, its wing broken, hanging like a wilted leaf. Its tiny body trembled not just with pain, but with a profound sense of injustice. Solomon, whose heart was attuned to the suffering of all creatures, leaned forward. His voice was not a thunder of royal command, but a soft rumble of concern. "Who has done this to you, little one?" The bird turned its head, its small dark eye fixing not on a guard in armor, nor a hunter with a bow, but on a figure standing quietly at the edge of the assembly. It was a man cloaked in the simple, patched robe of a dervish, a man who had outwardly renounced the world to walk the path of God. His head was bowed, his hands were clasped, and his entire posture radiated an aura of serene piety. A murmur went through the court. A dervish? A man of spirit? It seemed impossible. Solomon summoned the dervish forward. The dervish moved with a slow, deliberate grace, his eyes downcast. "This bird has lodged a complaint against you," Solomon said, his voice now laced with a steely authority. "It says you broke its wing. What do you have to say in your defense?" The dervish looked up, his face a mask of sincere confusion and regret. "Great king, I am a humble servant of the divine. I was walking in the fields, lost in contemplation, when I saw this beautiful bird. I wished to capture it, to study its beauty as a sign of the Creator's majesty. I approached it slowly, making no sudden moves. It did not fly away. I took another step, and another, and still it remained. I believed it was offering itself to me, a gift from the heavens. So I reached for it, and it was only at the very last second that it tried to flee. In that chaotic moment, in that flutter of panic, its wing was tragically broken. It was an accident, born of a misunderstanding." Solomon listened, his gaze impenetrable. The dervish's logic was sound. In the laws of nature and man, the prey is expected to flee the predator. He turned his attention back to the bird. "The man's story has merit," Solomon declared. "He did not stalk you like a hunter. He approached you openly. You saw him coming. Why did you not fly away? You had every chance to escape. Why did you wait until it was too late?" The bird's response was not a chirp of fear, but a clear, ringing statement that silenced the entire court. "Because of his clothes," the bird said. "I saw the patched robe. I saw the humble posture. I saw the symbol of a man who has devoted his life to something higher. In my world, we learn to recognize the hunter by his stance, the serpent by its stillness. If he had looked like a predator, I would have fled in an instant. But I saw the uniform of a dervish, and I thought, this man will not harm me. A person of God would never bring violence to a helpless creature. My mistake was not in my senses, but in my faith. I was not fooled by a clever trick. I was disarmed by a holy disguise." The truth of this statement settled over the court like a heavy blanket. Solomon's face was grim. The bird's wisdom was sharper than any sword. This was not a simple case of assault. It was a case of profound spiritual fraud. The dervish had not just broken a wing, he had weaponized the very symbols of trust and sanctity. "The bird is right," Solomon announced, his voice echoing with finality. "The deception is the greater crime. Let the law of equivalence be carried out. Break the dervish's arm." The guards moved forward, but before they could reach the dervish, the little bird cried out, its voice filled with an urgent plea. "No, my king, I beg you, do not do that." Solomon paused, confused. "But why? Justice must be served. He broke your wing. We shall break his arm." "And what good will that do?" the bird replied, its wisdom now shining with almost a divine light. "His arm will heal, and when it does, his heart will be the same. He will simply be a more careful predator next time, his resentment giving his deception a sharper edge. If you truly wish to serve justice, do not break his arm. Instead, remove his cloak. Take from him the dervish robe he hides behind. Let him stand before the world as he is, so that no other creature, no other trusting soul will ever be fooled by his disguise again." In this simple, devastating request, the bird revealed a level of understanding that transcends mere vengeance and enters the realm of profound healing. It teaches us the most vital lesson in navigating a world of appearances. The greatest danger is not the evil we can see, but the evil that masquerades as good. The parable exposes a fundamental duality that Sufi thought has explored for centuries: the distinction between the outward form, the zahir, and the inner reality, the batin. The zahir is the cloak, the religious title, the spiritual jargon, the pious social media profile, the serene smile. It is the external performance of holiness. The batin is the inner state, the actual landscape of the heart, the true intention, the character that emerges when no one is watching. The dervish had perfected his outward form. His cloak was a masterpiece of symbolic communication. It broadcast a message of safety, peace, and harmlessness. The bird, like so many of us, read the symbol and believed the message.
This is not a failure of intelligence. It is a failure of a world that has taught us to trust symbols more than substance. In our modern age, we are relentlessly bombarded with curated outward forms. The personal brand, the online persona, the carefully constructed image, these are all modern versions of the dervish's cloak. We see the family photos of a public figure and assume a happy home. We hear the eloquent words of a self-proclaimed guru and assume a wise soul. We are conditioned to react to the packaging, not the content. The Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung spoke of this phenomenon through his concept of the persona. The persona is the social mask we wear, the version of ourselves we present to the world. It is not inherently good or bad. It is a necessary tool for social interaction. The danger arises when we or others mistake the mask for the face beneath. The dervish's crime was not in having a persona, but in crafting one that was a direct contradiction of his inner reality, his shadow, as Jung would call it. He used the mask of a saint to hide the heart of a predator. The bird's wisdom points us toward a faculty beyond ordinary sight. The Sufis call this basira, which is often translated as insight, but means something much deeper. It is the eye of the heart, the capacity to perceive the inner reality, the batin, that is veiled by the outward form. This is not a mystical power available only to a chosen few. It is a natural human faculty that has been allowed to atrophy in a world that overvalues empirical data and visual information. We are taught to trust what we can see, measure, and verify. But the most important truths about a person, their integrity, their compassion, their intentions, cannot be seen with the eyes. They can only be felt. They are perceived through a subtle resonance in the quiet chambers of our own heart. So how do we cultivate this insight? The story gives us a clue. The bird did not say, "Punish him so that I can feel vindicated." It said, "Expose him so that others will be safe." This shift from personal vengeance to communal protection is the first key. When our heart is clouded by the storms of anger, resentment, and a desire for revenge, our inner vision is obscured. A turbulent sea cannot reflect the sky. Similarly, a heart consumed by its own grievances cannot perceive the subtle truth of another. The bird's request was free of ego. It was an act of pure service, and in that purity, its vision was perfectly clear. This is echoed in the Stoic philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, who advised focusing on virtuous action for the common good rather than becoming entangled in personal emotional reactions. To see clearly, we must first clear the vessel of our own heart. The second key lies in understanding the bird's initial state. It wasn't flighty or paranoid. It was resting in a state of peaceful trust. It was this initial openness that allowed the deception to occur, but it is also the prerequisite for true perception. A heart that is permanently closed off in cynicism cannot feel anything, neither the lie nor the truth. The challenge is not to close our hearts, but to make them more sensitive, like a finely tuned instrument. This sensitivity is cultivated in stillness. It is in the practice of what the Sufis call muraqaba, or contemplative meditation, where we quiet the noisy chatter of the analytical mind, the mind that is so easily fooled by logical arguments like the dervish. In that quiet, we begin to notice more subtle forms of information, the feeling in our body when someone speaks, the sense of expansion or contraction in our chest, the quiet inner voice that whispers yes or no. This is where neuroscience and ancient wisdom converge. Studies on heart-brain coherence show that our heart sends more signals to our brain than the other way around. This heart intelligence is a real, measurable phenomenon. When we are in a calm, coherent state, our perception is sharper, our decision-making is more intuitive, and our ability to discern truth from falsehood is dramatically enhanced. We begin to see with the heart. The bird's final brilliant move was to choose healing over punishment. Breaking the dervish's arm would have been an act of justice, but removing his cloak was an act of communal healing. It addressed the system, not just the symptom. It protected the entire ecosystem of birds from this specific predator. This is a profound lesson for our own lives. When we have been harmed by a dervish, our instinct is to seek retribution. But true power lies in using that painful experience to create wisdom that can protect ourselves
and others in the future. It's about learning the signature of the deception so that we can recognize it the next time it appears, even when it wears a different cloak. It's about transforming our pain into a form of sight, a protective intelligence that we can carry with us. The wound becomes a source of wisdom. The brokenness creates an opening for a deeper kind of sight to emerge.
Now, let us bring this ancient idea into the stillness of your own life. There is no need to dig for painful memories. Just allow whatever comes to mind to gently surface. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if you feel at ease doing so. Take a slow, deep breath. And as you exhale, release the tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Bring to mind, without judgment, a time when your trust was misplaced. A time when you believed in a cloak, only to be wounded by the reality it concealed. Don't dwell on the story or the pain. Simply observe the memory as if it were a scene in a film. Now, I want you to focus on the cloak itself. What was it made of? Was it a cloak of charming words? A cloak of shared ideology or beliefs? Was it a cloak of authority, a title, a position that commanded respect? Was it a cloak of vulnerability, one that elicited your sympathy and care? Just notice the texture of the disguise. Acknowledge, without self-blame, what it was that your heart trusted. Your heart was not wrong to trust. It was simply reading a symbol designed to be trusted. Take another deep breath, and as you exhale, I want you to consciously release the weight of self-blame. Say to yourself, silently in your heart, I was disarmed by a holy disguise. My heart's desire to trust was not a weakness. Feel the shift as you stop blaming the perceiver and instead learn from the perception. Now, I want you to imagine you can do what the bird asked of King Solomon. In your mind's eye, gently reach out and remove the cloak from that person or situation. Just let it fall away. See the reality that was underneath, not with anger, but with simple, calm clarity. This is what was true. And now see your own self standing there, having witnessed this. And see that in your hand, you are now holding a small, smooth stone of wisdom. This wisdom was forged in that fire. The wisdom of knowing what that particular cloak looks like. The wisdom of recognizing its feel, its weight. This stone is not a weapon. It is a lens, a tool for seeing more clearly from now on. Hold this feeling of clear, compassionate wisdom for a moment. This is your basira, your insight. It was there all along. It was simply waiting for an experience powerful enough to awaken it. Breathe into that knowing. You are not broken. You are becoming wise. The profound message of this story is not to become cynical or to walk through the world in a state of constant suspicion. That is not freedom. It is a prison of our own making. The goal is to become discerning. It is to cultivate a heart so clear, so still, and so honest with itself that it can serve as a mirror, perfectly reflecting the truth of whatever stands before it. A true master of the heart, like the Sufi poet Rumi, does not reject the world, but learns to perceive its inner music. The goal is to listen beyond the words, to see beyond the cloak, and to feel the resonance of truth that emanates from a soul aligned with its own essence.
When you meet someone whose inner state and outer expression are in harmony, there is a feeling of peace, of coherence. There is no static, no dissonance. When you meet someone who is wearing a cloak that contradicts their heart, there is always a subtle static, a feeling of unease, a sense that something is not quite right. Our task is to learn to honor that subtle feeling, to trust that quiet whisper from the eye of the heart over the loud pronouncements of the logical mind. The wound of deception, when approached with wisdom, does not have to break you. It can break you open. It can be the very event that forces you to graduate from a naive trust in symbols to a mature trust in your own deepest perception. The pain becomes a rite of passage, stripping away our illusions and leaving us with a clarity that is unshakable. You learn that the ultimate protection is not a wall around the heart, but a light within it. A light so bright that it instantly illuminates both the integrity of the true saint and the empty shadows lurking behind the predator's pious cloak. You no longer need to fear the disguise, for you have learned to see the soul.